Today we will be showing you how to install a 12x16 Alpine Pavilion. However, they are also available on these sizes listed on your screen. The tools and accessories that are required in order for you to complete your installation will be laid out in your manual. Make sure to review those so that you have everything you need in order to complete the installation. Once you have located all the tools required in order to complete the installation, make sure that you are following all the local guidelines and regulations in order to complete the installation safely. You can start by unpacking the kit that we will provide for you. Make sure to locate all the necessary items in order to complete the installation. If for whatever reason there are any missing pieces, please contact us at the number listed on your screen. Now that you have located all of the items, we can start with post assembly. We recommend attaching your structure directly to a concrete pad or footers. Mark off the desired location for the structure placement that fits your outdoor area using the footprint of your structure. Standard sizes can be found in the assembly manual that will be provided for you in your kit. Locate the 4 posts and note how the top of each post has 2 cutouts. The flat side should be facing in. Set the post in place with the lines that you made. Drill into the concrete using a hammer drill with a 1/2 inch by 6 inch drill bit. Fasten the posts using 1/2 inch anchor bolts through the post brackets. Repeat these steps until all posts have been drilled into the concrete. Once the anchor bolts are in place, make sure posts are level. This can be adjusted by loosening or tightening the anchor bolts. You can now install the post skirts. The post skirt is notched at the bottom. Be sure to align the notches with the brackets installed on the post. When installing the posts, make sure the cedar post wraps are all uniform. You can now move on to the post and header assembly section of the manual. Locate the long headers. Place one of the longer headers in position on the front posts. Attach the long header to the post using 10 4-inch Timberlock screws through the pre-drilled holes. Ensure the post is aligned with the long header. We recommend only installing 2 screws temporarily until the short headers are in place and then install the remaining screws. Attach the top of the long header to the posts using 2 3.5 inch round screws towed in per side. Repeat this process for the other long header. Locate both of the short headers. Make sure to note that when installing the short headers, the notch in the middle of the header is facing up. In the event that the width of your structure is greater than the length, these headers will actually be longer than the others. Place the short headers on top of the posts and make sure they are aligned with the posts and the adjacent long header. Attach the short header to the post using 10 4-inch Timberlock screws through all the pre-drilled holes. Fasten the header to the post with 2 3.5 inch brown screws towed in. Repeat this process for the opposite header. Locate and install the decorative beam trim. Insert the dowel of the decorative beam trim into the pre-drilled hole of the short header. Fasten the decorative beam trim to the short header from the top down using 2 3.5 inch screws through the pre-drilled holes. Using a speed square, ensure the decorative beam trim is square with the short header. Locate the long brace section. Place the brace section between the posts and tight against the header above. The brace section should be centered on the header above and will not be centered on the post. Fasten the brace section to the header from the bottom up using 4-inch Timberlock screws. Fill all the pre-drilled holes all the way across. Fasten the brace section to the post from the side using 4-inch Timberlock screws and fill all the pre-drilled holes as well. Install the remaining 3 brace sections using the previous steps. Using a 5/8 inch by 14 inch drill bit, place a mark at 10 inches and also 12 inches on the drill bit. We recommend drilling through the brace and end board with a 3/4 inch drill bit first to minimize the risk of damaging the cedar brace. Pre-drill through the brace and into the post to the depths shown in the manual for all posts and headers. Do not over-drill. The bit is long enough to come out of the opposite side of the post. Prepare the 10-inch lag bolts with washers and 12-inch lag bolts with washers. Using a 1 1/8 inch socket, drive the proper length lag bolt into the brace and post using the measurements shown in the manual. Repeat these steps to install the remaining lag bolts. Touch up the imperfections made during installation on the lag bolts and washers using the provided touch-up paint. You are now ready to install the vertical web post. Make sure to have the pre-drilled holes on the vertical web post facing out. Remove two 4-inch Timberlock screws from the center of the short header. Install the vertical web post by placing the dadoed end into the notch of the short header, and reinstall the two 4-inch Timberlock screws. Ensure that the pre-drilled holes on the vertical web post are facing out as shown in the manual. Repeat these steps to install the vertical web post at the opposite end. You are now ready to install the ridge pole. Lift the ridge pole into position and ensure the notch of the ridge pole and the vertical web post are placed tightly together. Fasten them together using two 4-inch Timberlock screws through the pre-drilled holes towed in at an upward angle as shown in the manual. Once the posts are level, fasten them together using two 4-inch Timberlock screws through the pre-drilled holes, one on each side, towed as shown in the manual. Attach the opposite end using the previous steps. Use a brace if necessary to ensure the vertical web post is plumb. You are now ready to move on to rafter assembly. You can now locate the end rafters. Make sure to note that there is a left rafter and a right rafter. Lift the end rafter into position. Place the end rafter on the main header. Ensure the rafter is tight against the Simpson bracket as shown in the manual. Install the end rafter using four 3.5-inch round screws towed in. Install the opposite end rafter using the previous steps. Align the top of the end rafter to the marks made on the ridge pole and make sure it is in line with the vertical web post. Fasten the top of the end rafter on the inside and the outside using 3.5-inch round screws towed in through all the pre-drilled holes. You can now locate the diagonal web posts. Make sure to note that there is a left side and a right side. Install the diagonal web post from the inside with the notch up toward the end rafter and the 45-degree angle cut down toward the header. Fasten to the end rafter with 3.5-inch round screws through all the pre-drilled holes. Fasten the bottom to the short header using 3.5-inch round screws towed in through all the pre-drilled holes. Repeat this process to fasten all the remaining diagonal web posts using the previous steps. You can now locate the center rafters. Lift one of the center rafters into place and make sure the notch is at the bottom. Place the notch of the rafter on the long header and tight against the Simpson L bracket. Fasten the bottom of the rafter with 3.5-inch round screws through all the pre-drilled holes. Place the top of the rafter directly on the X marked on the ridge pole with the edge of the rafter aligned with the line. Fasten the rafter using 3.5-inch round screws towed in through all the pre-drilled holes. Fasten the opposite rafter using the previous steps. Continue installing the remaining rafters using the previous steps until all have been placed. Fasten the Simpson brackets to all the rafters using four 1.5-inch screws per Simpson bracket. You can now locate the fascia board and lift it into place. Ensure that the angle cut is facing to the outside of the pavilion. Place the fascia board against the rafters and measure end to end to ensure that it is centered. Fasten the fascia board to each rafter using 3.5-inch round screws through the pre-drilled holes. Ensure the top of the fascia board is flush with the top of the rafters. Fasten the opposite side fascia board using the previous steps. You can now locate the four face rafters. Lift the face rafter into place as shown in the manual. Align the face rafter with the outside and bottom of the fascia board. The top of the face rafter will be flush with the top of the other rafters. Fasten the face rafter to the fascia board using two 3.5-inch round screws. Ensure the face rafter is flush with the edge of the fascia board. Align the edge of the face rafter to the center of the ridge pole and the top of the face rafter flush with the edge of the ridge pole. Fasten the face rafter to the ridge pole using a 3.5-inch round screw through all the pre-drilled holes. Use the previous steps to fasten the remaining face rafters. Locate the cross ties and lift them into position. Align the edge of the cross tie with the rafters and place a level on top of them to make sure it is centered. Fasten the cross ties with 2.5-inch round screws through all the pre-drilled holes. The cross tie locations will vary depending on the size of the pavilion. Space them out equally from each end. Continue on with the same process until all of the cross ties have been installed. You can now move on to the tongue and groove assembly section of the manual. You can now install the T&G roof boards. Make sure you turn the nice side facing down and ensure the groove is facing down toward the fascia board. Fasten the T&G roof boards with 2-inch nails. Use 2 nails per rafter. Longer structures will have more than one size T&G board. If the roof boards are at all warped or bowed, make sure to pull them down into place with pressure so that the tongue is inserted tightly into the groove. Continue working up the roof, making sure that the tongue is firmly inserted into the groove. Although not provided, an alternative to nails is 2-inch screws. Continue this process until all roof boards have been installed. You are now ready to move on to the final assembly. Locate the drip edge and install on the edge of the roof and flush with the side of the roof with the hammer tacker every 10 to 12 inches. Measure and mark off the drip edge and then cut it as needed to finish off the rest of that side. Continue the drip edge on the gable ends of the roof and cut and fold the drip edge at the top as needed. You can now install the roofing paper. Roll the roofing paper across the roof and attach with hammer tacker staples. Attach the Country Lane logo on the inside of one of the headers. It contains the serial number for your structure. Once you have completed your installation, check for any scuffs or scratches that may have occurred during shipping or installation. You can cover these with the stain that we have provided for you.